Wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk, you wanna talk.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Talk to Solomon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stan Solomon. I'm the host.
I'm Chief Steve Davis, the co-host.
And also co-hosting the show is our good friend Greg Howard, our financial guru from the great state of Alabama. Greg, good evening.
Good evening.
Our guest of honor is the former Reagan administration UN Undersecretary, Dr. Alan Keyes. Dr. Keyes, how are you this evening?
I'm doing fine, Stan. How are you?
I am fine, and I want to tell you something. This show so far has made us frustrated, unhappy, and depressed, so hopefully you can fix all that, because we have found a whole lot of problems.
That's not usually the department folks rely on me for these days, you know.
I'm telling you.
Even though I was talking to a good friend of mine not long ago, I had written an article at WorldNet Daily in which I actually had an encouraging theme, and he said he had to reach for his nitroglycerin pills. Make sure he wasn't. Alan wasn't gloomy today. No.
All right. Now, Alan, I want to talk about something that I'm going to say it, and then we'll just discuss it in a rational way. I believe Barack Obama won the election by massive cheating, by rigging of voting machines, by in-your-face, outlandish cheating. We know of this situation, that situation, but we've had a situation come up in the city of Cincinnati, where I live, where a lady whose name is an unusual name, I don't know if I can remember it, it's Eloise, something, but she has been accused and has admitted she voted, and she's a poll worker. Her last name is Richardson. Meloise Richardson said on television, which doesn't make her the brightest bulb on the tree, yes, I voted twice in the last election. It turns out she voted not twice, but 6 times. And her claim now is, I wasn't sure if my absentee ballot would count, so to make sure I voted in the general election, and as a election official, I let myself vote. Secondly, I voted for my daughter. She said it was okay, that's a felony is irrelevant. And that I voted for some other people, and they're living with me, even though they aren't now, but she said they were then. Now, whether or not she voted 6 times or 1 time or 16 times would not have changed the outcome of that election. But I will say this again. I believe in the minority community, Hispanic and black, maybe Asian, but I don't have any facts of the Asian community, that they believe it is not okay, but it is necessary, it is righteous, it is mandatory, it is essential, it is valuable, it is patriotic, that they vote as many times as possible to make sure that their issues are addressed. Now, I'll give you an example, and then I'll let someone else talk. There was a young man who walked into a storefront when Barack Obama was first elected. What was that, 200 years ago? It's been a long time. At any rate, he said, when he walked to this office, I'd like to vote for Barack Obama. And they said, well, that's nice. You've come to a Barack Obama office. Are you registered? He said, no. They said, have you ever registered? He said, no, but I wants to register now. Black young man. Okay, no problem. Come with me. Ready? They took him to 74 different counties in the state of Ohio and registered him to vote. And then he voted in all 74 counties that had absentee ballots sent to addresses which were forwarded to him. And he admitted all this after the election. And he was proud of it. That's how Barack Obama won the first time. Barack Obama won the second time by doing that 100 times over because they've learned how to do it, and they've learned that the Republicans won't say a damn thing because they're afraid of being called racist. Although the head of the Republican Party in Hamilton County has taken this to the mat, and now they're going to prosecute this woman and 28 others. And all the activists on the left are saying, well, 28 people didn't change the outcome of the election. Well, it wasn't 28 people. It was 28,000 people. It was probably 2.8 million people who voted multiple times, and he won by 5 million votes. It is my conviction that we have uncovered the tip of the iceberg. Now, Dr. Keyes, I'll let you start, and we'll work around the board here.
Well, Stanley, I think the only thing I would add, though, is that we really need to think about what you raised there. The question of why are the Republicans silent? Why have they been unwilling, seriously, deeply, to raise a stink about all of these matters? And I've got to tell you, I don't think the explanation is that they're afraid of racism. I think that we are seeing the results of the fact that we now have this strange party so-called system in which we don't really have any competition, in which they are assigned their roles and they do their job, and neither of them represents the people. And in order to pull it off, Stan, you do realize that both parties have to cheat. I encountered this personally when I was running in Republican circles, in primaries and so forth, in all the times that I ran, but especially the most recent ones where it just got more and more shameless in terms of the outcome. And in 2008, I wasn't, not 2008, 2012, I wasn't participating, but I think the whole country was scandalized by the process, including the process in the Republican primaries where the votes for Rick Santorum weren't even reported out of Iowa until 3 weeks after the election, so they wouldn't influence New Hampshire and so forth. The system now is an elitist system intended to supplant the will of the people with the will of the elites. And in order to achieve that, Stan, you got to rig elections. And they haven't yet completed what I think will be the most disastrous and decisive process. Because when everything has been shifted over to a form of voting that at the end of the day can only be checked by a bunch of computer whizzes, we'll never have an honest election again. And the notion that we will have is silly. The elections will simply be used to register the will of the elites and pretend that the people said so. And folks will look at the outcome, know that it doesn't represent them, as millions of people know it today. Millions upon millions know that the outcome in the primaries, the outcome in the general election didn't represent them, wasn't what they wanted, that neither of these parties speaks for them, but they keep on chugging on, unchallenged. It's like any other monopoly system. Where there isn't real competition, you don't get real quality. And since there isn't real competition in this political system, we don't get quality representation. We don't get any representation at all. There is only one answer. We got to break up this game. We've got to introduce real competition. We've got to bring free enterprise back to American politics, where it has been banished now for several decades. And if we don't, Stan, I don't see any way out of this problem. Because, yeah, folks will chirp about, oh, the other guy cheated and this guy cheated. But the powers that be in both party establishments aren't going to really press the issue because they don't want people to get the idea that you should really be strictly enforcing the observance of the fairness of these elections and the accuracy of these elections. They don't want this. And why don't they want it? Because they want the freedom of action to rig elections when it comes time to serve their own interests. The notion that the people should actually be represented is regarded with contempt and ridicule by all concerned. And final point, the proof of this, by the way, is in the contempt that all parties, all these leaders in both parties have shown for the Constitution of the United States, for the issue of Barack Obama's eligibility, for other issues that involve the integrity of the Constitution, including the Second Amendment rights. They're all now getting up and acting as if we want it, the Constitution shouldn't be a bother. Well, you do realize that that means that the idea of fairness based on we set the rules and everybody plays the game by the rules and we enforce the rules so that everybody will have a kind of equal playing field, knowing what the rules are and abiding by them. That's been thrown out the window. And if it's thrown out the window with the supreme law of the land, why on earth should you expect it's going to be observed in election regulations and other procedures that are much easier to mess with? So they're doing it. So I think we've got a fundamental problem. And that fundamental problem isn't going to be resolved just by looking at how we can be more strict about this and that. No, people have to have a will to enforce rules. You can't just proliferate rules and expect things to take care of themselves. And the elites in neither of these parties has any will whatsoever to achieve authentic representation of our people in the outcome of our elections. And why should they, by the way, Stan? See? And you say, what do you mean, Alan? Why should they? Why should they when the people themselves aren't insisting on it? It's like everything else that's going to be happening over the next little while. Don't expect to see sincere protests from these elitists when the rights of the people are trampled on and things are happening that don't respect the rules of representation, including the integrity of elections, because they don't have a stake in that. Only the people have a stake in it. And if the people try to rely on those who wish to be their masters to achieve and perpetuate their sovereignty, then they've forgotten the lessons of both our history and that of most of the world. Final point, I still don't know where the courage will come from to do all of this by the people themselves, except that it would come from people who still had the courage that relies upon faith in God rather than money and backing and media or anything else. Is why I put such an emphasis on it all the time. Because right now, we don't see that kind of courage amongst our people. That courage to stand on your rights, to stand on and insist upon your sovereignty and your representation in a constitutional form of government. Folks are sitting back and waiting for something. I don't know what. And while they're waiting for somebody else to save them, their liberty will be lost.
I think your point is sadly right on. Greg?
As well said as it can be, let me add just a couple of points. The power in elections lies with the people counting the votes. And that has always been the case. I believe it was Stalin who articulated that extremely well. The problem I see with America right now is that the concept of we the people is just a buzzword. People speak many times about we the people this, we the people that. Yet I see on Twitter, where we have a great interchange of ideas, a lot of people doing a lot of hand-wringing and talking about who is going to save us, who's going to step forward and solve this problem. Yet the power is only in one place anymore to change this. If you're going to wait for someone in Congress to voluntarily relinquish the power they have given to themselves wrongly, the power to ignore the Constitution, the power to ignore high crimes and misdemeanors at all levels of the executive branch and in many other members of Congress, if you're going to sit there and wait for people in Congress to bring articles of impeachment, you're going to be waiting a very long time. There is no impeachment train coming, folks. There is no succor for the American people coming from this Congress. If there is going to be a change, it is going to have to come from the ground up in what I would call a brush fire event. It is going to have to be people getting fed up enough that they're going to get out in the streets. They're going to do it in small groups at first, protesting in front of TV stations saying, we don't believe you, going in front of local congressmen's offices and protesting. Gone are going to be the big days of the big, huge Tea Party rallies. Those just made a bunch of people a lot of money. Your congressmen of both parties are in the hands of the big bankers, the Federal Reserve, and the power brokers behind the scenes. If you want to change things, you're going to have to get it to the street level, you're going to have to make it retail patriotism. You're going to have to get out there and do it locally. You're going to have to get the attention of the local people so that it doesn't look like a big Tea Party event 500 miles away, 2,000 miles away, which seems remote to people. You're going to have to make this protest local and at home, and you're going to have to build momentum that way. Start with a group of 5 to 10 people and build on it locally. But if you're going to sit back and wait for someone to come along and save you, then you do not deserve to be saved, and America does not either. You're going to have to do it yourself, and if you don't know how to do it, go to my website, gregwhoward.com, and read Operation Brushfire. I put it up again today, and if that's not good enough for you, find other people putting out this same type of information. But if you're going to save yourself, you're going to have to pull yourself up from your bootstraps, and don't tell me you don't have time. Our founding fathers had to travel 4 or 5 days at a time just to get from their farms and businesses to Philadelphia to discuss these things. What you really have is you're afraid you're going to lose something. You're afraid you're going to lose time from work. You're afraid you're going to lose your bank account. Let me tell you, if you don't act, you're going to lose it all anyway.
Chief?
Well, let me remind everybody that the left will lie, cheat, steal, and murder to get their way. They believe that the end justifies the means, so they're going to cheat. That's why they're so adamant about not having identification required to go vote. But the GOP, on the other hand, I've been involved with the GOP my whole life, and now I'm going to tell you this, that I didn't leave the GOP left me. But their philosophy that's taught from the elitist in charge of the GOP at the national, state, and many local levels is that the only way for the GOP to win elections is to move to the center and actually to the left. So you must campaign in the middle, you must campaign to the left to try to gather those independent votes and those soft Democrat votes, but that's no way to win an election. And so what the GOP establishment is supposed to be doing is saying we're going to be campaigning for the people. We're going to go out here and campaign for the people of this country and serve them, get elected and serve them rather than serve ourselves. So both sides are at fault here. So Dr. Keyes and Greg have both mentioned that. But I see the solution here as really all of the efforts that we all have are going to always be focused towards some type of leadership. The Tea Party did a great thing. They have no leadership. So the grassroots that Greg mentioned is wonderful, but it's going to have to evolve into some type of leadership. So what I want to say is it's going to happen, when we find the leaders emerging, we must support them. It's going to take time, as Greg mentioned. It's going to take money. It's going to take work and effort, and that's going to have to happen. So when those leaders emerge, we must support them, and we're not going to get Jesus Christ to run. They're going to have some kind of flaws, but overlook those and support them to get this thing back on track.
I appreciate what everyone's saying, and I want to, again, iterate that the Democrats not only won the presidency, and not that the Republicans are saints, as Alan's pointed out, they're not, but the Democrats not only won the presidency, they won Senate seats, they won House seats, they won state House and state Senate seats, they won Board of Election seats, they won school board seats. They have decided and are comfortable with cheating, particularly in the minority communities, but not limited to the minority communities. Just this woman wasn't smart enough to keep her big mouth shut. Now she's going to end up being convicted, most likely, for which they'll give her some sort of a slap on the wrist.
And maybe a pardon.
And chances are she'll still be an authority or an official with the election board. We have to demand, and that gets to Greg's point, an eye for an eye here. We have to demand that this outrage must stop. Do you know that George Soros owns one of the companies that counts most of the vote in this country? Do you know that the idea of not having paper ballots is something we should say unacceptable? No election should not have paper ballots. If they want to punch them in, or you want to vote on the computer that you can get your idea of the results, but every election should be paper ballots, and all ballots should be counted, and all ballots should be authenticated with a person that voted. And this idea of letting people go to vote without ID, we should say no. We should do what we have to do to say it cannot happen. And of course, this idea of voting for days on end, weeks on end, months on end, and voting remotely is just outrageous. It just has to stop.
Can I make,
Alan, you want to make a final comment?
Yeah, one final comment adding to that list, because ironic as it may seem to some folks, I think the other thing that we have to fight is the essentially socialist communist idea that you require that everyone vote and that you force people to go to the polls. I think the first decision that is required for decent citizenship is the decision to participate. And the notion that government has the right to force you to do so is such a deep travesty. It's a travesty against the whole idea of liberty, but it's also a travesty against the idea of individual responsibility. And frankly, I'm not sure it's a good idea that people who don't care enough to take an interest should then be herded to the polls like cattle, because such people will probably end up being herded literally like cattle by the powers that be, offering them this or that inducement. And I don't think that's a good basis for citizenship. The real thing that's needed here is a restoration of the initiative of the people and of their sense of responsibility. That has been the key, I think, to the success of America from the beginning. And it became more and more widespread, that sense of responsibility. But guess where it began? At the family, at the individual, and at the local level. And that's where I think we're going to have to restore it.
Well said. What was the recommendation just made by one of the Democrats? Oh, everyone will be automatically registered. Everyone. So it doesn't mandate that you have to vote, but you no longer have to do anything to register to vote. So now, literally, if everyone's registered, then everyone can be voted for if they don't want to vote for ththemselves. And you have the mindset of this moron, Richardson, who says it's not a problem. My daughter didn't want to take the time to vote, so I voted for her. She said it was okay. What? All right, let's pick another topic. 110 million. Now, I want you to think of that number. In this country, we have, give or take, 320, 315, 325 million people, many of whom are actual citizens, some of whom are illegals, some of whom are Democrats, which means they're irrationals. But according to a new report that was put out by the CDC, which doesn't give it any special credibility from my perspective, they said there are 110 million sexually transmitted infections. Now, I don't think they mean that Madonna has 600,000 of them, although she could. I think they mean 110 million people, basically 1 out of every 3 people in this country, has an STD. Just take a deep breath and think about that for a moment, because I want to talk about that. Before I venture my opinion, I'll start with the Chief. Chief, a person with an STD that knows they have it and decides to be intimate with someone else, are they or are they not doing something that's wrong? Let's not talk about legal or illegal, because that varies. But is it wrong?
Absolutely, it's wrong. And there are some cases that used to be illegal to transmit some diseases. For example, tuberculosis used to be controlled, and people that had it and refused to be treated were ordered by a judge to be hospitalized until quarantined until that was cured. So because they were a hazard, so it could be a crime if the legislatures decided to enact it as such.
All right, Greg, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm very glad I've been married to the same woman for 23 years and don't have anything to worry about in that regard, because these are staggering numbers, and the cost is, I think the article said $16 billion. That's an awful lot of money. I think folks need to understand that we look at the Bible, and it has these admonitions about chastity and fornication and so forth. That God didn't put these laws in there to punish us or to deprive us of things, that these are for our own good. And when you look at the effect that disobeying these warnings and admonitions, and Lord knows I'm a child of the 70s, okay? There's a time in my life that I call BC, before Christ, and that's not a good time. But, you know, these warnings and admonitions are there for a reason. And look at the end result of this. 56 million abortions since Roe v. Wade, 110 million STD infections. That's 1 in 3 if you average it out on adults. There's a really good reason that we should be looking at these admonitions and warnings in the Bible and putting our hearts back in that direction and not looking at them as punishments, but as safeguards.
The fact is, there is right, there is wrong, there is God. You can say whatever you want. Those things exist. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Dr. Keys will address this issue. This is Talk to Solomon. Do you like being healthy? I do. In fact, this product, which I've been taking for years now, is absolutely the answer. Now, you may not believe it, but I'm actually 21, plus tax, of course. This product has 146 different healthful nutrients in it, and it's liquid, so it's bioavailable. It tastes great, and it's sugar-free. 1 ounce of Sonic Life each day will help you to maintain and enhance your health. It's a kind of a gift, well, that you'll thank your mom for, your husband for, your wife for, your kids for. Whoever you give it to, they're going to say thank you. And you are going to enjoy the benefits of having all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the nutrients your body needs in one very reasonably priced product. Just go to cpnlive.com and everything's right there. You'll be able to read all the ingredients. The price is right there, a flat price delivered to your door anywhere in the United States of America. Sonic Life is a gift, a great gift. Give it to yourself. I do. Let me ask you a question. Do you like being sick? I have in my hand an incredible product. It's called TR10 Supercolloidal Silver. TR10 stands for a trace to the negative 10th power. The particles in this silver product are 6 to 8 angstroms, 6 to 8 10 billionths of a meter. Now listen to me. Silver has been the magic bullet for all of human existence. The Egyptians used silver instruments. We use silverware. They put silver in your teeth because nothing can grow on silver. Silver will kill anything but liberalism. I'm working on that. This product, you go to cpnlive.com, buy 1 quart of this product. It will last you for a very long time. Anytime you feel like you've been exposed to something bad, take some of this product, spray it in your mouth, or take a little bit and gargle it, swallow it. It will kill any pathogen. The average antibiotic kills 10 to 20 different pathogens. This product will kill 700 plus. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your doctor a favor. He's tired of seeing you. Get Supercolloidal Silver. Go to cpnlive.com, order the product. It's $29.95 plus shipping. I think it's $39.95 delivered any place in America right to your door. It's worth 10 times that. Check it out. If you're not 100% happy, just return it and we'll give you your money back. Hey, my name is Stan Solomon, and you know if I have something to say, I'll say it. And I'll only tell you the truth because I'm a Republican, not a Democrat. Democrats always lie. Republicans only lie half the time. I don't lie at all. This is the Fuel Mule. It's an extraordinary product that was developed by a friend of mine, an engineer, and it increases the fuel mileage on your vehicle. If you have a combustion engine, this will increase your mileage by 10 to 20%. It bolts around your fuel line. You can install it yourself or have your mechanic do it. It is an extraordinary item, and it flat works. I've been using it for more than 10 years. It's increased my mileage on every vehicle I put it on, and by the way, it will last forever. You can get rid of your vehicle, just take it off and put it on the next one. Go to cpnlive.com. You'll have more information there. You can order it right there. We absolutely guarantee you'll be satisfied. The Fuel Mule. It's a way to kick down your cost of fuel and kick up your mileage. Don't you love the name? I thought of it. The Fuel Mule. I like to eat. Do you like to eat? We all do. And usually we run to the grocery store, we run to the convenience store, or we have something in the fridge. but power's been out in parts of this country in the last few weeks. We don't know what's going to come down the pike economically. Smart people are putting in food. Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves is a line of foods that you can put away that will last for a very long time. You know, they say eat what you store and store what you eat. This is great tasting stuff, healthy for you, a full line. You go to our website, cpnlive.com, and click on the button for Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves and see all the different things we have. This is good tasting food. It's reasonably priced. It will last. And it's worth its weight in gold if a problem arises. I know you don't think there's going to be anything that goes wrong. Actually, you do. This is smart. This is smart insurance. This is smart preparation. This is smart thinking. You have kids, you have a spouse, you have parents, you have dependents, you have an appetite. All those things can be addressed by a frugal but smart investment in Alpine Air Gourmet Reserves. Try them out. You will be tickled to death with the taste of them. You know what? In many cases, people start to eat this and they think, heck, this tastes better and costs less than what you're going to the grocery store to buy. cpnlive.com. Check it out.